Chapter 4484. Imperial Capital Mountain. The black-haired old man whose body was destroyed by the inner demons was sitting cross-legged under the stone tablet, rebuilding his body. Below him, there was an invisible time array. Whoosh! Suddenly, a burly figure descended above the entrance of the Imperial Capital Mountain. The black-haired old man opened his eyes suspiciously and looked up. He saw an unfamiliar burly man standing in the sky. The aura and pressure he exuded weren't very strong. "What an unfamiliar aura," the black-haired old man murmured and asked, "Who are you? What business do you have with my supreme mountain?" Now, he was very low-key and couldn't find the arrogance he had when he first met Dong Yulon. Because he was afraid that he would accidentally kick an iron plate. The burly man smiled and said, "I'm just a nobody, not worth mentioning." A nobody? The black-haired old man was slightly stunned. He sized up the burly man and indeed didn't have any impression of him. But he still didn't dare to be presumptuous. As the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. What happened last time had already left a shadow in his heart. So now, even if he saw an unfamiliar face that he didn't have any impression of, he didn't dare to be careless. The burly man said, "I have something to ask the 9 commanders. I hope you can inform them." "Ask to see the 9 commanders." The black-haired old man couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't Lu Yuntian or Lu Yunfeng's people, it was fine. He asked suspiciously, "You have something to ask the 9 commanders?" "Yes. I know, the murderer of their family." The burly man nodded. Hearing this, the black-haired old man's eyes trembled. This was really shocking news. He asked, "Who is the murderer? It can't really be Qin Feiyang and the others, right? I won't say a word without seeing the 9 commanders." The burly man shook his head. The black-haired old man looked at the burly man for a moment and said, "Wait for me here, I'll go inform them now." "Thank you." The burly man cupped his hands and smiled. After the black-haired old man got up and left, the burly man curiously sized up the Imperial Capital Mountain. The Imperial Capital Mountain was formed by many giant peaks. In the mountains, clouds and mist lingered as auspicious beasts galloped. There were magnificent palaces and classical and elegant pavilions. Some of them were situated at the peak of the mountain while others were situated halfway up the mountain. Dense mist rose from them, and when looked at from afar, they were like immortal palaces. "I don't know if I can break through the barrier here with my current godly domain and enter the Imperial Capital Mountain directly." That was right. He was Long Chen. Imperial Capital Mountain was the most sacred place in the Central Dynasty. Everyone knew about it, so anyone could easily find out where it was. He really did come to Imperial Capital Mountain. No one would believe it if he said it out loud. Wang. Suddenly, below, a space-time tunnel appeared. Long Chen looked down and saw a graceful figure walking out of the space-time tunnel. There's such a beauty in the Central Dynasty. Even Long Chen couldn't help but feel amazed at this moment. The woman was none other than Princess Yuxian. Her long dress was spotless, and her long hair was soft and beautiful. Her skin was as smooth as jade, sparkling with light. She was like an immortal that had descended to the mortal world. Just one look at her would be unforgettable. Princess Yuxian was about to enter the Imperial Capital Mountain when she suddenly noticed Long Chen in the air. She was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, "Who are you? Why are you standing at the entrance of the Imperial Capital Mountain? And who are you? Why should I answer your question?" Long Chen said lightly. "So arrogant." Princess Yuxian was slightly stunned. A sly look flashed in her eyes as she said, "I'm a little maid of the Imperial Capital Mountain. Are you meeting someone? Do you want me to pass the message?" "Little maid?" Long Chen looked at Princess Yuxian in shock. How could a little maid have such an aura? How could a little maid wear such a luxurious and noble dress? Although he didn't know anyone from the Imperial Capital Mountain, there was no need to treat him like an idiot. He ignored Princess Yuxian and continued to look at the Imperial Capital Mountain. Looking at Long Chen's attitude, Princess Yuxian was instantly displeased. As the daughter of the Emperor and the Princess of the Central Dynasty, no one had ever dared to ignore her like this. She waved at Long Chen and said, "Come down." Long Chen turned a deaf ear to her. Although Princess Yuxian was very beautiful, he didn't feel anything about her. Other than her noble aura, she was no different from any other woman. This was because he understood that no matter how beautiful a woman was, she would become a pink skeleton after death. Seeing this, Princess Yuxian was getting angrier and angrier. She said angrily, "I order you to come down." When Long Chen heard this, he immediately had an answer in his heart. This woman must be the descendant of some big shot in the imperial capital mountain. Because he had never seen Princess Yuxian before, and Qin Feiyang and the others didn't mention this woman in the Black Tortoise world, he didn't know that this woman in front of him was the emperor's beloved daughter. However, he still didn't move. Although he looked very ordinary after changing his appearance, his natural talent couldn't be hidden. "How dare you?" Princess Yuxian was surprised. Was there really someone in the central dynasty who dared to ignore her? It seemed like this person really didn't know her identity. Otherwise, he would have knelt in front of her like a dog, trying to curry favor with her. Whoosh! At this moment, 10 figures shot through the air like lightning. It was the black-haired old man, Dong Yuerong, and the other commanders. At this moment, Dong Yuerong and the other commanders were very anxious as they stared at the entrance of the imperial capital mountain. "It's him," the black-haired old man said as he pointed at Long Chen. The 9 commanders immediately stared at Long Chen, but then they looked at Princess Yuxian below. What's going on? Why is Princess Yuxian here? Could it be that this so-called nobody knows Princess Yuxian? The black-haired old man was shocked. It can't be. Is he really a piece of metal? At this moment, his mind was filled with thoughts. If Long Chen knew about this, he would be impressed by his imagination. After a few breaths, the 10 commanders finally flew out of the imperial capital mountain and landed in front of Princess Yuxian. They bowed and said, "Greetings, Princess Yuxian." "Princess?" Long Chen was stunned. The so-called princess must be the emperor's daughter. He did not expect to meet the emperor's daughter on his first trip to the imperial capital mountain. "Yes." Princess Yuxian nodded and looked at Long Chen. Now that he knew her identity, he should be trying to curry favor with her. Unfortunately, she was disappointed. Because she did not see what she wanted to see in Long Chen's eyes. Neither did he try to curry favor with her. What's going on? Princess Yuxian was puzzled. Is he an emotionless person? Because no one would be able to remain so calm after knowing her identity. The black-haired old man asked carefully, "Princess, do you know this person?" "No, I don't. I was just curious when I saw him standing here like a block of wood." Princess Yuxian shook her head. She heard about it. The black-haired old man heaved a sigh of relief. Princess Yuxian asked suspiciously, "Why did he come to the imperial capital mountain?" The black-haired old man said truthfully, "He said he knows the real murderer who killed the commanders' families." "What?" Princess Yuxian was shocked. She looked at Long Chen and asked, "Who is the real murderer?" The 9 commanders also glared at Long Chen, killing intent surging out of their eyes. Long Chen looked at them with a hint of mockery in his eyes and said, "I can tell you, but what benefits can you give me?" "Benefits?" The black-haired old man was stunned and suddenly understood. No wonder he would only tell them after meeting the commanders. He wanted to take the opportunity to ask for benefits from the commanders. However, wasn't this person too irrational? One must know. The person standing in front of him was Princess Yuxian. Who gave him the courage to ask for benefits from Princess Yuxian? Long Chen smiled and said, "I can't tell you for no reason." The commanders clenched their fists. What a reckless person. Not to mention the Moon Fairy Princess, even the 9 great commanders couldn't stand such blatant extortion. If not for Princess Yuxian's presence, they would have already taken Long Chen down. "What do you want?" Princess Yuxian took a deep breath and asked Long Chen. Long Chen coughed and said with a smile, 10 ultimate laws and a pinnacle dominator divine weapon. What? The commanders and the black-haired old man were stunned. 10 ultimate profundities of the strongest laws and a pinnacle dominator divine weapon? What a joke. Even the commanders did not have a pinnacle dominator divine weapon. He was asking for too much. Dong Qian said in a deep voice, "Do you know who you are negotiating with?" "Of course. The 9 commanders of the Death God Army and the Emperor's daughter." "So what? I give you the information and you give me the reward. It's only right. Do I have to tell you for free just because you have a high status?" Long Chen's lips curled into a mocking smile. "You're courting death. How dare you offend Her Highness?" The black-haired old man was enraged and shouted at Long Chen. "Even the princess has to be reasonable." Long Chen chuckled and was unmoved. "You have guts." Princess Yuxian nodded and smiled. She looked at Long Chen and said, "I don't have a pinnacle dominator divine weapon and 10 inheritances are too much. I can agree to give you 2 inheritances. Are you trying to dismiss a beggar? It seems like you are not sincere. If that's the case, then I'm sorry. Goodbye." After saying that, he turned and left. Whoosh. The moment he turned, the 9 commanders moved and surrounded Long Chen. They surrounded Long Chen. Long Chen raised his eyebrows and looked at the 9 commanders. "You want to beat me into a confession?" The 9 commanders were furious. If it wasn't for Princess Yuxian, they would have killed him. They said, "We are all reasonable people. Why would we beat you up? However, 10 inheritances are too much. How about this? We will give you 5 inheritances." 5 inheritances? Long Chen was slightly stunned. He shook his head and sneered. "Interesting. The 9 commanders of the Death God Army can't even get 9 inheritances. Don't go overboard." The 9 commanders' eyes darkened. The Central Dynasty did have inheritances, but they were not in charge of them. In other words, they had no right to control them. The only one who could control them was the Emperor. In short, without the Emperor's permission, even if the inheritances were in front of them, they would not dare to touch them. End of chapter. Chapter 4485. 5 legacies is too much. How about this? I don't want the Pinnacle Dominator divine weapon, but I want the 10 ultimate law inheritances, not 1 less. Long Chen looked at the 9 of them and said. The 9 of them were furious. Why couldn't they persuade her? What kind of place was this? Even if they gave her 10 legacies, would she be able to take them away? Okay. As long as your answer satisfies me, I can give you 10 legacies. Princess Moon Fairy's voice suddenly sounded. Your Highness, the 9 of them and the black-haired old man looked at Princess Moon Fairy in disbelief. She actually agreed to this person's request. It's useless to talk. You have to give me the legacies before I can tell you. Long Chen lowered his head and looked at Princess Moon Fairy. Don't go overboard. Princess Moon Fairy is the apple of the Emperor's eye. Why would she lie to you? The black-haired old man standing beside Princess Moon Fairy shouted angrily. Who knows? Long Chen pursed his lips. I'm a princess. Am I not worthy of your trust? Looking at Long Chen's attitude, Princess Moon Fairy was also angry. It's hard to know what's in a person's heart. Long Chen laughed. In fact, he wanted to send Princess Moon Fairy away on purpose. Because the Moon Fairy princess was the daughter of the Emperor, she might have some trump cards on her. If they were to make a move later, with this woman present, there might be some variables. For example, the origin energy. Although he could interfere with the origin energy now, it was still the Divine Kingdom's origin energy. The Divine Kingdom's origin energy was much stronger than the Black Tortoise World's origin energy. Therefore, he didn't dare to take the risk. Okay. Wait here. I'll go get the legacies now. But remember, if I find out that you're lying to us, you'll be destroyed. Princess Moon Fairy laughed angrily. She turned around and entered the Imperial Capital Mountain. She didn't even look back. The 9 great commanders and Princess Yuxian looked at the departing figure and exchanged glances. Their eyes were filled with killing intent at the same time. They were actually waiting for Princess Yuxian to leave. Because as long as Princess Yuxian left, they would be able to attack without restraint. What do you want? I'm telling you all, do not act recklessly. Right now, I am the only one who knows who killed your family. Still, the princess told us to wait for her here. If you kill me, the princess won't let you off easily. Long Chen revealed a timid expression as he looked at the 9 commanders. Now you know fear? Unfortunately, it's too late. Reckless fool, how dare you blackmail us? You're not telling me? It doesn't matter. As long as we capture you, we have 10,000 ways to make you talk. As for your highness, when she asks later, we'll say that you started it. Of course, you can also defend yourself. But do you think her highness will trust us or you, a stranger? The 9 people sneered. The black-haired old man was also gloating. How dare you blackmail the 9 great commanders? Do you think you're Lu Yuntian and Lu Yunfeng? Looking at the 10 of them, Long Chen was extremely flustered. Attack! Don't let him self-destruct, and don't give him a chance to destroy his divine soul, Dong Haitian shouted. Boom! In the next moment, the 9 people's aura erupted as they charged toward Long Chen. With their strength, killing an ordinary person was nothing more than a piece of cake. Moreover, the 9 of them were working together. Hence, they never thought that they would fail. But at this moment, Long Chen's lips curled up slightly. The timid and panicky expression that he showed earlier vanished instantly. Boom! In the next moment, the god's domain appeared. Long Chen, who stood in the god's domain, was like a god that controlled everything. His aura was completely different from before. What is this? The 9 people were stunned. Without hesitation, they threw a punch at the god's domain. I am God, the ruler of everything, Long Chen said. His voice resounded in all directions. However, the god's domain did not collapse, nor did it merge with the world. It still maintained its original appearance. However, when the 9 people's fists landed on the god's domain, they felt as though they had landed on a ball of cotton. All of their strength was easily dissipated. How is this possible? The 9 people were shocked. This must be a dream. The black-haired old man rubbed his eyes hard. His face was filled with disbelief. You still don't know that you're about to die. How foolish. Long Chen smiled disdainfully. He took a step forward and instantly landed in front of the 9 people. The god's domain enveloped the 9 people. What the hell is this? The 9 people were shocked to find that they were unable to activate their ultimacy at this moment. For an expert with the will of heaven, it was a terrifying thing to be unable to activate their ultimacy when facing an enemy. This meant that no matter how many ultimacies you had, no matter how strong you were, you would be like a cripple without any ability to fight back. Destroy all of you. Long Chen's eyes flashed with killing intent. The 6 ultimacies roared out as the will of heaven erupted. What? He has also mastered the will of heaven. The black-haired old man and the 9 commanders were shocked. The black-haired old man made a prompt decision and fled towards the entrance of the imperial capital mountain. As long as he entered the imperial capital mountain, he would be fine. The 9 commanders also wanted to escape from the god's domain. However, Long Chen did not give them the chance to do so. The god's domain instantly expanded. Not only did it trap the 9 commanders, but it also enveloped the black-haired old man who was about to escape into the imperial capital mountain. No, who are you? The 10 people screamed in despair. Me. Then remember my name, Long Chen. Long Chen smiled faintly. As his voice fell, the 6 ultimacies carried the will of heaven and attacked. It's you. No, I don't want to die, the 10 people roared, shocking everyone. Whoosh. Figures flew out from the imperial capital mountain. They stood in the air and looked at the exit in shock. What was going on? Were those the screams of the 9 commanders? Who was so daring to come to the imperial capital mountain to kill them? Immediately, these people rushed towards the exit with murderous intent. The first to arrive was the Moon Fairy Princess. When the battle broke out, she realized that something was wrong and immediately returned. However, when she returned, she only saw blood floating in the air. Long Chen had already disappeared. Princess, what's going on? The others arrived one after another. Among them were the inner demons, Lu Jiajin, Dong Hanzong, and Dong Qingyuan. Looking at the shattered ground and the blood that was splattering in the air, their faces were filled with shock and anger. Someone killed the 9 commanders and the guards here. The Moon Fairy Princess clenched her fists. Her eyes were extremely cold. Who dared to come to the imperial capital mountain to kill people? Moreover, the 9 commanders were killed. This was undoubtedly a blatant provocation of the imperial capital mountain. What? They were killed so quickly? How is that possible? The 9 commanders all have the will of heaven. Even if the other party has the will of heaven, it shouldn't be so fast. The faces of everyone present were filled with disbelief. Could it be little cousin? No, this isn't his style. He wouldn't take the risk now. If it isn't little cousin, then who could it be? The mysterious young man? But this isn't his style either. Could it be the white-eyed wolf and the lunatic? That's not right either. The lunatic is now in the Myriad Demons Valley. The white-eyed wolf. Based on his style, he would definitely show off after killing the 9 commanders before leaving. What's going on? The inner demons and Lu Jiajin were very confused at this moment. Princess, this must be the doing of Qin Feiyang and the others. Suddenly, an angry roar sounded. The inner demons and Dong Qingyuan looked up and saw Dong Qingyuan looking like he was about to eat someone. That's right. It must be them. I really can't think of anyone else in the Central Dynasty who would have the guts to come to the imperial capital mountain and kill people. The others also nodded in agreement. Princess Yuxian's eyes flashed coldly. She suddenly looked at the inner demons and asked, "What do you think?" Lu Jiajin pretended to ponder for a while and said, "First, the families of the 9 commanders were killed. Now, they were killed. I think it must be the doing of Qin Feiyang and the others. Hee. Maybe it's because these 9 pieces of trash have offended too many people. For example, it's possible that it's some ambitious person." The inner demon bared his teeth and glanced at Dong Hanzong. "Why are you looking at me? Do you think it's me?" Dong Hanzong said angrily. "I didn't say that. I just said that it's possible. So don't confess without being pressed." The inner demons laughed. "You," Dong Hanzong glared at the inner demons. "It can't be Dong Hanzong. He's been with me all this time," Dong Qingyuan said. "Old thing, I didn't take the initiative to target you. Why did you bump into me?" The inner demons sneered and said meaningfully, "Then, is it possible that the 9 commanders know too many secrets of someone, so that person wants to silence them?" "You bastard. What are you talking about? Who are you talking about?" Dong Qingyuan shouted angrily. "How dare they shift the blame to him? I'm talking about someone, but I didn't mention his name. Is it really you? How can you do this? They are your confidants. They are loyal to you. No matter how many secrets they know, they won't betray you. Sigh. They worked so hard for you for so many years, but in the end, their families are ruined. It's really disappointing." The inner demons shook his head and sighed. He said it as if it was true. Dong Qingyuan was trembling with anger. "Enough. They're already at your doorstep. Why are you still causing trouble?" Princess Yuxian glared at them, her face full of anger. "Princess, it's not us who want to cause trouble. It's someone who wronged us in the imperial palace, saying that we're the real culprits who killed the 9 commanders' families. Right now, I merely want them to have a taste of what it is like to be wrongly accused." The inner demons sneered. Dong Hanzong and Dong Qingyuan's faces darkened when they heard this. The so-called someone was obviously talking about them. End of chapter. Chapter 4486. While the inner demons were targeting Dong Hanzong and Dong Qingyuan, in the sky above Hanzong City, buzz, a space-time tunnel appeared. This space-time tunnel was not concealed. In an instant, many people noticed the space-time tunnel. Especially the members of the Death God Army who were hiding in the city, their eyes were fixed on the space-time tunnel. Although Qin Feiyang and the others had not appeared for a long time, none of the members of the Death God Army dared to relax. Thud. One by one, footsteps came from the space-time tunnel. These footsteps were very ethereal, as if containing a magical power, causing the heartbeat of everyone in the city to uncontrollably follow the frequency of the footsteps. Moreover, these footsteps could be described as weak. If one did not listen carefully, they would not be able to hear it. However, for some reason, such weak footsteps could clearly enter everyone's ears. At first, only a small number of people noticed the space-time tunnel in the sky, but with the sound of footsteps, almost everyone in the city could not help but look up at the space-time tunnel. Just the sound of footsteps could cause their heartbeat to accelerate. What kind of expert had come to Hanzhong City? Finally, a burly man walked out of the space-time tunnel. That's right. It was Long Chen. Hanzhong City, Dongqin, you won't blame me for being nosy, right? Glancing at Hanzhong City, Long Chen murmured in his heart, and then a smile appeared on his face. The god's domain opened again. Boom. The next moment, the god's domain dissipated in the void and merged with heaven and earth. It seems like he has ill intentions. The members of the Death God army who were hiding in the dark felt the fluctuation of the heaven and earth law, and their faces suddenly sank. No longer hiding their whereabouts, they shouted, "Who are you? What do you want?" Long Chen looked at the members of the Death God army. There were a total of more than a dozen people. You guys really put in a lot of effort. Seeing that you guys are working so hard, I'll set you free. Long Chen smiled faintly. Boundless power of the natural order suddenly surged out in this world. What? He can actually control the power of the heaven and earth law? The faces of the members of the Death God army suddenly changed. What kind of amazing means was this? This was too ridiculous. Could this person be the guardian of the divine kingdom? However, they had never heard of any guardians in the divine kingdom. Destroy them all. Long Chen was like a monarch, announcing the end of Han Zhongcheng. As his voice fell, endless rule power flooded the city below. Don't be impudent. The members of the Death God army roared, wanting to activate their ultimate intent. However, in the next moment, their bodies stiffened, and their faces were filled with bewilderment. What's going on? Why couldn't he unlock the ultimate profound? It was as if the power of laws in his body had been sealed by a mysterious power. They tried again, but they still couldn't open it. What's going on? Run. Quickly inform His Majesty and ask him to bring reinforcements. The dozen or so members were terrified. They looked at the crowd around them, who were also in a state of panic, and roared. This world has already become my domain. As long as you are in my domain, no one will be able to escape. Long Chen said faintly. His voice wasn't very loud, but it reverberated in everyone's mind, making them feel despair. The next moment, a scene that truly made them despair appeared. A surge of rule force emerged around each of them. These rule energies were like numerous large invisible hands, firmly binding them. Not to mention escaping, they could not even move a single step. Why is this happening? What the hell did he do? More than a dozen members of the Death God army had reached the point where they were scared out of their wits. Even the Emperor couldn't do such a thing. Who the hell is this person? No, in the face of the frenzied nomological power, everyone in the city couldn't help but roar in despair. However, it was meaningless. The rule power mercilessly killed. Cries of agony echoed in the sky. The current Han Zhongcheng was like a hell on earth. About a dozen breaths passed. Everything finally came to an end. At this time, Han Zhongcheng was in tatters and a mess. On the ground, blood flowed like a sea of blood. It was a shocking sight. Sigh. Looking at this scene, Long Chen sighed deeply. This was really not his intention. Such a cruel and bloody scene was not what he wanted to see. But there were some things that he had to do. Because now, if he didn't do this, more people might die in the future. I hope this is the last massacre, he sighed. With a wave of his hand, the blood on the ground surged into the sky one by one, gradually condensing into lines of big words in the void. In the end, he glanced at these big words and turned to leave. What? Han Zhongcheng was massacred. Imperial Mountain. Princess Yuxian, Dong Hanzong, Dong Qingyuan, inner demons, and Lu Jiajin also received this news very quickly. Their faces were full of horror. How long had it been? Han Zhongcheng was also massacred. No, I don't believe it. Dong Hanzong regained his senses and immediately roared, rushing to Han Zhongcheng. Princess Yuxian, inner demons, Lu Jiajin, and Dong Qingyuan also quickly followed. When the five of them arrived in the sky above Han Zhongcheng, the ground that was riddled with holes, the blood, and the bones on the ground immediately entered their sight. At this moment, Han Zongqing was simply like an azure hell, sending chills down their spines. Who is it? Who is it? Dong Hanzong looked at this scene in disbelief, and a monstrous murderous aura rushed out of his body. The city was really massacred. There was nothing left. The family business that he had worked so hard to build for many years was all gone in an instant. This kind of feeling almost made him collapse. Look. The inner demons pointed to the void above, and his pupils contracted tightly. Lu Jiajin, Dong Hanzong, Dong Qingyuan, and Princess Yuxian all looked up and immediately saw the bloody words left by Long Chen. I originally didn't have the intention to kill indiscriminately, but the divine kingdom is too tyrannical. If you know your wrongs, I am willing to negotiate with you to create peace and prosperity between the two worlds. But if you insist on being stubborn, I can only stop killing with killing, and let the people of the divine kingdom be plunged into misery and suffering. Rivers of blood will flow. Every word was filled with a terrifying domineering aura. This was what Long Chen had left behind. He was not a lunatic, nor was he a cold-blooded person. Seeing so many people die in his hands, he really couldn't bear it. Negotiate. Dream on. If I don't kill you, I'm not human. Dong Hanzong roared hysterically. Dong Qingyuan and Princess Yuxian clenched their hands tightly, and their eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent. After killing the 9 great commanders and massacring Han Zongqing, he still wanted to negotiate with them. Don't be naive. This blood feud was irreconcilable. Boom. Suddenly, another powerful aura descended. This was a golden figure, and his entire body exuded an emperor's aura that made people submit to him. That's right. The emperor had arrived in person. Father. Your Majesty. Dong Hanzong, Dong Qingyuan, and Princess Yuxian immediately flew to the emperor's side. The emperor raised his hand, signaling the three to calm down, and then looked at the bloody words left by Long Chen. Your Majesty, the words two worlds clearly refer to the Sky Cloud realm and our divine kingdom. The murderer must be Qin Feiyang. Even if it's not Qin Feiyang, it must be his accomplice, Dong Qingyuan said in a deep voice. If it's really Qin Feiyang, it's actually a good thing for us. The emperor said. What? A good thing? Dong Qingyuan and the other two looked at the emperor in shock. Lu Jiajin and the inner demons were also surprised by the emperor's words. Killing the 9 great commanders and massacring Han Zongqing, and the speed was so fast that we couldn't even react. Think about how terrifying such means are. If this person is really Qin Feiyang's accomplice, do you know that not only will we have to face a powerful opponent like Qin Feiyang in the future, but we will also have to face an enemy that may be even more terrifying than Qin Feiyang? The emperor said in a deep voice. Dong Qingyuan, Dong Hanzong, and Princess Yuxian's eyes trembled when they heard this. Hearing the emperor's words, it was indeed reasonable. If it was really Qin Feiyang, the situation in the future would still be the same as before. They just needed to find a way to kill Qin Feiyang. But if the murderer was Qin Feiyang's accomplice, then they would have another terrifying enemy in the future. That was because Han Zongqing, who had instantly killed 9 great commanders and massacred millions of people in such a short period of time, must possess heaven-defying strength to accomplish such a feat. This person might not be inferior to Qin Feiyang, or he might be even more terrifying than Qin Feiyang. Where are the members of the Death God army guarding Han Zongqing? The emperor asked. Dong Qingyuan sighed and said, I'm afraid something bad has happened to them. Let me see if there are any other creatures nearby. If there are, they should have witnessed the entire process of this person massacring Han Zongqing with their own eyes. The inner demon released its divine sense, which spread out in all directions. Soon, his eyes lit up. As he waved his hand, the 4 young men and women struggled and flew over uncontrollably. The emperor and the others also looked at the 4 people. The 4 people's faces were pale and they trembled. That was because they were the witnesses. Don't be afraid. These 2 are the emperor of the Central Dynasty and Princess Yuxian. The inner demons comforted them. Greetings, Your Majesty, Your Highness. The 4 people quickly knelt in the void. Did you see that person commit the murder? Princess Yuxian asked. Yes, at that time, We happened to be training in the mountains outside the city. When we heard the commotion, we immediately rushed over to check, but we didn't expect to see this scene. It's too terrifying. In just a dozen breaths, he massacred everyone. Even the members of the Death God army did not have any power to fight back. He's a devil, the 4 people said intermittently. Their bodies were trembling non-stop, and their pupils were dilated. They seemed to be scared out of their wits. Chapter 4487. Unable to fight back at all? Princess Yuxian frowned. It seemed like it was another instant kill. What kind of method did this person use? The inner demons asked. How did he do it? We don't know either. We have never seen that kind of method before. However, he seems to be able to control the power of laws, and he also has the ability to seal the law, preventing us from activating the ultimate profound. The 4 of them trembled as they spoke. Their scalps went numb when they thought of those methods. What? Controlling the power of laws. Sealing the law. Isn't sealing the law Dong Xin's ability? It seems like only her sealed god domain can do that. The few of them were in disbelief. Lu Jiajin's eyes flashed slightly as he looked at the 4 of them and said, "Tell me the details of what happened." Okay. The 4 of them nodded as they recalled what happened and described the situation in detail. Activating a barrier, merging with heaven and earth. I have never heard of this before. Everyone fell into deep thought. Could it be Long Chen's god domain? The inner demons suddenly sent a message. God domain. Lu Jiajin was slightly taken aback as he thought to himself, the ability is indeed similar, but I remember that his god domain can't control the power of laws. The benefits are also the same. The inner demons mumbled. Apart from Long Chen, who else could have such a method? Lu Jiajin thought to himself, I won't think about it if I don't understand. I'll find a chance to ask my younger cousin later. Although we can't confirm this person's identity, we can be sure that he's not from the central dynasty. He's most likely an accomplice of Qin Feiyang. Dong Qingyuan said in a deep voice. Yes. Princess Yuxian nodded. From the bloody words left behind, they could determine the other party's position. The emperor raised his head and looked at the bloody words again. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he said coldly, "This is not a negotiation, but a provocation. We must find them as soon as possible and kill them all." As his voice fell, the emperor waved his hand, and a vast emperor's aura surged out from his body and rushed toward the bloody words. I accept your challenge. Boom. With a loud bang, all the bloody words were annihilated on the spot. In the distance, Long Chen stood at the edge of a cliff and witnessed this scene with his own eyes. That was right. He did not leave. He wanted to see the emperor and the others' decision. Judging from the emperor's behavior, the so-called peace talks would never happen. Then let's slowly wait and see. After muttering to himself, Long Chen turned around and left silently. At the same time, Lu Jiajin seemed to have sensed something and looked towards the edge of the cliff with a trace of doubt in his eyes. What is it? The inner demons were suspicious. It feels like someone is watching us. Lu Jiajin mumbled. Someone's there. The inner demons weren't the only ones who were surprised. The king and the others followed Lu Jiajin's gaze, but they saw nothing. Impossible. Just now, I used my divine sense to scan the area. Apart from these 4 people, there is no one else within a radius of several 100 million kilometers. The inner demons looked at Lu Jiajin. Lu Jiajin thought for a moment and said with a smile, maybe it's just my imagination. What did you say? Han Zhongcheng was also massacred. Not a single person survived. It can't be. Who the hell is this person? First, it was the family of the 9 great commanders, then the 9 great commanders themselves, and now Han Zhongcheng. Why do I feel like this person is deliberately taking revenge? As soon as the news of Han Zhongcheng being massacred spread out, it immediately set off a huge storm. Everyone was in danger. Everyone was terrified. They were afraid that the next moment, the place where they were would also be massacred. Flying Dragon City. City Lord's Mansion. Back Mountain. Father, mother, a beautiful woman in her 30s hurriedly ran into the back mountain and rushed towards a small courtyard. In the courtyard, there were 2 old people. A man and a woman. Both of them had white hair and a sorrowful expression. They were Dong Qin's biological grandfather and grandmother. Yulon. When the two of them heard Dong Yulon's voice, they couldn't help but look up. Seeing Dong Yulon's happy expression, a trace of suspicion arose in their hearts. What was so happy about? Father, mother. Good news. Dong Yulon landed in the courtyard, panting, and looked at the two elders and said. The two of them looked at each other and asked curiously, what good news? Not long ago, the 9 great commanders of the Death God army all died at the entrance of Imperial Capital Mountain. Han Zhongcheng also suffered a devastating blow. Not a single person survived. Dong Yulon said. What? The two of them suddenly stood up, their faces full of shock. They're all dead. Now, only the Emperor, Dong Hanzong, and Dong Qingyuan are left. Dong Yulon clenched her hands. She hated these people to the bone. Not only did they kill her husband, but they also wanted to murder her. If it weren't for Lu Yunfeng and his brother, she was afraid that she would have been killed by Dong Hanzong and the others. Yulon, don't talk nonsense. We know that you hate them very much now. You can kill Dong Qingyuan and Dong Hanzong, but you can't do anything to the emperor. The two of them hurriedly said. The emperor was not only the highest authority of the central dynasty, but also the son of the ruler of the divine kingdom. If they dared to do anything to him, they would be courting death. Don't worry, I'm not stupid enough to murder the emperor. Dong Yulon comforted. That's good. The two of them heaved a sigh of relief. They were afraid that Dong Yulon would be blinded by hatred. This time, was it Qina who killed the 9 commanders and massacred Han Zhongcheng? The two of them asked with concern. No. This time, it was a man who did it. Dong Yulon shook her head, pondered for a while, and said with some worry, however, I can faintly feel that it should be related to Qina. Isn't that good? Qina has such a powerful friend. Whether it's for her or for our entire family, it's a good thing. Why are you still a little worried? The two of them looked at Dong Yulon in confusion. Because the worry on Dong Yulon's face was too obvious, it was hard not to notice. Father, mother, you may not know, but this person left a few lines of blood for the emperor and the others after massacring Han Zhongcheng. It mentioned the 2 realms. According to the analysis of the emperor and the others, the 2 realms refer to the Sky Cloud realm and our divine kingdom. In other words, this person is from the Sky Cloud realm, which means he is an accomplice of Qin Feiyang and the others. If this is really related to Qina, think about it. Doesn't this mean that Qina is colluding with Qin Feiyang and the others? Dong Yulon said in a deep voice. When the two of them heard this, their expressions changed drastically. If the emperor knew that Qina was colluding with Qin Feiyang and the others, it would not be as simple as a punishment, but the whole family would be exterminated. This consequence was not something that a direct family like theirs could bear. That's why I'm worried. Moreover, Qina was captured by Qin Feiyang and the others in the 4 great continents. Now, Qin Feiyang and the others have entered the central dynasty, and Qina appeared with them. Moreover, she appeared in front of me unharmed. The timing is also very coincidental. She appeared not long after her father was killed. Is there no problem with this? Dong Yulon was worried. At this time, there is something strange. The two of them nodded. With the means of Qin Feiyang and the others, it was impossible for them to let any enemy go easily. And how did their granddaughter escape from the hands of these people? The most important thing was, now, Dong Qin, who had escaped from the evil hands, did not dare to return to the Flying Dragon City. Father, mother, if, Dong Yulon looked at the two of them seriously and said in a deep voice, if Qina is really colluding with Qin Feiyang and the others, what do you think we should do? This is a serious crime. The two of them looked dignified. Dong Yulon took a deep breath and looked at the two of them, saying, do you want to hear my thoughts? Go ahead. The two of them held their breath. Qina's father's death, although he is partly responsible for it, the main responsibility is still on Dong Qingyuan and the others, especially the emperor. He clearly knows that Dong Qingyuan and the others are the real culprits, but he sided with them and made Dong Cha their scapegoat. I have never been able to let go of this matter in my heart. If Qina is really colluding with Qin Feiyang and the others, I think it must be because she wants to avenge her father, and now, Dong Hanzong and the 9 commanders have indeed paid the price. So I think we should support her, Dong Yulon said. That's right. No matter what she does, she will always be our granddaughter. The 2 old men did not hesitate at all and nodded with firm eyes. Thank you, father, mother. However, in the face of the emperor's power, we can't do nothing. Otherwise, when China's matter is exposed one day, our family will be implicated. Dong Yulon said. The 2 of them looked at the daughter-in-law in front of them, their eyes full of gratification. Dong Cha died. This daughter-in-law not only did not abandon them, but also took on everything by herself. Yulon, in the future, do whatever you want to do, you don't have to ask us for everything, we will support you. In addition, if you don't find it tiring, you can take over the Flying Dragon City in the future and become the head of our family. The 2 of them said. Take over the Flying Dragon City? Dong Yulon was stunned and quickly waved her hand. How can I do that? I'm just a woman, and I married here, I'm just an outsider. When have we ever treated you as an outsider? Although you married here, in our eyes, you have always been our biological daughter. Moreover, who said that a woman can't be the head of the family? Your ability is not inferior to that unfilial son of ours. No. You are stronger than him. Because if it were you, you would definitely not get involved in the dispute between Dong Qingyuan and Lu Yunfeng. The 2 of them said. But the family may not agree. Especially those elders who have mastered the will of the heavens. Dong Yulon was a little hesitant. With us supporting you, what are you afraid of? Moreover, those elders who have mastered the will of the heavens are now in the 10th division of the Death God army. The remaining elders have no right to speak at all. Moreover, don't forget. You have 2 backers now, with your relationship with them, who would dare to stand up against you? The 2 old men laughed. These 2 backers were naturally the inner demons and Lu Jiajin. End of chapter. Chapter 4488. The next morning. The news that Dong Yulon was going to inherit the City Lord's position spread throughout the Flying Dragon City. At first, she was opposed by many clansmen. Some said that she was a woman and did not have the ability to manage the Flying Dragon City well. There were also people who said that Dong Yulon was not a member of their clan and did not have the qualifications to inherit the position of Patriarch and City Lord. However, these voices of rejection were quickly calmed down. Because on the day that Dong Yulon inherited the position of Patriarch and City Lord, the inner demons personally led the members of the 10th Squad of the Death God Legion to congratulate the Flying Dragon City. Among these members, there were all the clan elders of the first direct family clan. They all controlled the will of the heavens, and were now members of the Death God Legion. Even they supported Dong Yulon. What else did the other clansmen dare to say? Moreover, the inner demons had personally arrived to cheer Dong Yulon up. Who would dare to oppose? It went smoothly. Dong Yulon inherited the great cause and became the first female patriarch in the history of the Flying Dragon City, the female City Lord. Black Tortoise Realm. Brother Long, you really amaze the world with a single brilliant feat in the tea garden. Qin Feiyang and Long Chen sat together, happily drinking tea. Who would have thought that with just Long Chen's strength, he would be able to destroy the 9 commanders and Han Zongcheng? Furthermore, he was able to calmly escape. Unfortunately, they don't know that I did it. Long Chen shook his head and laughed. Qin Feiyang laughed. What I want is this kind of mysterious feeling, to make them live in fear every day. The corner of Long Chen's mouth twitched as he laughed bitterly. You, being your enemy is truly a matter of despair. Don't talk about me, aren't you the same? Do you know that even that brat wants to kill you? Because you're already a huge threat to him. Qin Feiyang laughed. Cough cough. Long Chen coughed dryly, changed the topic, and said, this time, when I went to Imperial Capital Mountain, I coincidentally bumped into Princess Yuxian. What is it? Are you tempted? Do you want us to help you? Qin Feiyang snickered. Long Chen rolled his eyes and said speechlessly, can you stop trying to match them up? I just want to say that I feel threatened by this woman. I see. I thought you had taken a fancy to her. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. He picked up his teacup and took a sip. He smiled faintly and said, As the beloved daughter of the emperor and the granddaughter of the ruler of the divine kingdom, how could she not have some life-saving means? In that case, we still can't make a move against her. Long Chen asked. Definitely. It's not only the Moon Immortal Princess, there's also the emperor's wife. Although they're all very valuable people, it's not that simple to capture them. Qin Feiyang shook his head. This pair of mother and daughter, not to mention other things, definitely had the power of origin in their hands. Long Chen nodded in agreement. He sighed and said, although this trip successfully gave the emperor and the others a show of strength, there is also a piece of bad news. Bad news? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. The divine kingdom is much stronger than the Black Tortoise realm. I can easily control the power of the rules of the Black Tortoise realm. However, when I massacred Han Zongqing, I felt that I couldn't control the power of the rules of the divine kingdom. At that time, I also tried to control the power of the origin of the divine kingdom, but I couldn't do it. I'm afraid that even if I can slightly interfere, I'll have to use all my strength. Long Chen's face was a little disappointed. Although the realm of God had evolved again, it wasn't much of a threat to the divine kingdom. This isn't really bad news. After all, it's within my expectations. When Long Chen went to the imperial capital mountain, he had been thinking about this problem. Although Long Chen could control the power of the rules of the Black Tortoise realm and interfere with the power of the origin of the Black Tortoise realm, he was still a little lacking when facing the divine kingdom, which was stronger than the Black Tortoise realm. But the good thing is that although the time I can control the power of rules is very short, it can still play a big role in critical moments. Long Chen smiled slightly. The disappointment on his face was instantly swept away. There was no need to worry about this kind of thing. Because it was meaningless to worry about this kind of thing. It was better to work hard and cultivate hard to bring the realm of God to a higher level. To be honest, I want to spar with you now. Qin Feiyang smiled. Then let's not. Let us continue to be in awe of each other. Long Chen chuckled. That's right. Although Long Chen's realm of God had evolved, Long Chen was still wary of Qin Feiyang in his heart. Similarly, seeing how Long Chen had become so strong, Qin Feiyang was also wary in his heart. In other words, Long Chen did not want to break the current balance. This was because once there was a victor in the sparring session, the loser might feel conflicted in his heart. At that time, it might affect the feelings and trust between the two parties. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Soon. Qin Feiyang suddenly received a message from Lu Jiajin. After a series of inquiries, it was really Long Chen's masterpiece. Lu Jiajin sighed for a long time before finally saying a sentence. As expected of the son of the ice dragon, his terrifying talent made people afraid. Time flew by. Another half a year passed. Boom. On this day, a powerful force of nothingness rushed out from the ancient castle. After spending more than a year, Qin Feiyang finally grasped the ultimate meaning of the law of nothingness. More than a year outside was almost 2 million years in the Black Tortoise realm. It was really a terrifying number. However, it was also worth rejoicing. Because if there was no inheritance, the time needed would be even longer. It could be tens of millions of years, or hundreds of millions of years, or even his entire life. He might not be able to comprehend an ultimate meaning. Another 2 months passed. The white-eyed wolf had also successfully grasped the seventh ultimate meaning of the strongest law. The seventh ultimate meaning he had fused was the law of light and darkness. Because the law of light and darkness was extremely rare, it could satisfy his desire to go out and show off. In the next half a year, there were many people who had grasped the will of the heavenly Tao. First, it was the demon ancestor, Mu Tianyang, Dong Zhengyang, Mu Qing, followed by the demon dragon, mermaid princess, fire lotus, and so on. Five-clawed golden dragon, big black wolf, blood kirin, white jade kirin, and so on. There was also Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, the 6,000 secret guards, Xie Yuan, and the others. They were all working hard. However, even though they had grasped the will of the heavenly Tao, the demon ancestor and the others did not relax. They continued to comprehend the laws and fuse the inheritance. Because they all knew that in the face of the powerful divine kingdom, Only by constantly working hard and becoming stronger would they have a chance to defeat them. Soon. It had been 2 years since Qin Feiyang and the others had entered the central dynasty. In 2 years, not only had Qin Feiyang and the others' strength skyrocketed, but the disciples of the sacred grounds and sacred halls were also undergoing earth-shattering changes. 2 years outside was more than 3 million years in the Black Tortoise world. One could imagine how long 3 million years was for the disciples of the sacred grounds who had just stepped into the Dominator realm. After such a long time, coupled with their hard work, their strength was definitely not the same as before. There were even many disciples of the sacred halls who had successfully fused 1 or 2 ultimate meanings of the strongest law. Of course, the Sea Lion Demon King and Ji Xiaowu outside were also growing stronger. Especially Ji Xiaowu. Even though he was managing the affairs of the city while comprehending the laws and fusing the inheritance, he had already successfully fused 1 ultimate meaning. As for the Sea Lion Demon King, who was wholeheartedly in seclusion, he was already fusing the second inheritance like Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf. Boom. On a certain evening. 1000 Demons Valley. A powerful aura erupted like a volcano. Following closely. Above the firmament, the wind and clouds surged as blood-colored tribulation clouds instantly enveloped the entire sky. What's going on? This seems to be a heavenly tribulation. What seems to be? This is a heavenly tribulation. How can someone undergo a heavenly tribulation in the 1000 Demons Valley? The 1000 Demons Valley is filled with evil energy. Even if it's a powerhouse with the heavenly Tao will, they can only last for half an hour at most. Could it be that this is a heavenly tribulation of some divine item? For example, a Dominator divine weapon. The aura of the heavenly tribulation was too powerful. The creatures near the 1000 Demons Valley immediately noticed it, and their expressions were filled with surprise. What? A heavenly tribulation appeared above the 1000 Demons Valley? How is this possible? Not to mention ordinary creatures, even people like the Emperor and Dong Qingyuan were in disbelief when they heard this news. 1000 Demons Valley? Little cousin seems to have said that Madman is now in the 1000 Demons Valley. Could this heavenly tribulation be related to him? Lu Jiajin was secretly surprised. If that's the case, then we're in big trouble. The inner demon's heart sank. Madman's heavenly tribulation would definitely expose his aura. At that time, the people of the Death God army would definitely go to the 1000 Demons Valley to encircle and annihilate him. He had to face the heavenly tribulation on one hand and the threat of the Death God army on the other. Even if Madman could defy the heavens, he would probably not be able to escape death. What was going on? The ultimate profound meaning that Madman mastered was not comprehended by himself. How could he go through the heavenly tribulation? Wasn't this causing trouble? The heavenly tribulation is not something that Madman can control. It's useless to blame him. Lu Jiajin shook his head. Lu Yunfeng, Lu Yuntian, gather at the imperial palace immediately. Suddenly, Dong Qingyuan's voice sounded above the imperial capital mountain. The inner demons and Lu Yuntian looked at each other. There was no doubt that Dong Qingyuan must have summoned them to go to the 1000 Demons Valley. Lu Jiajin's eyes flashed as he looked at the inner demons and said, "Go outside and keep an eye on them. I'll send a message to my little cousin. I'm afraid he doesn't know about this yet." Okay. The inner demons nodded and walked out of the courtyard, scanning the surroundings. This was to prevent someone from spying on them. Of course. This kind of thing was not very likely now. After all, they were now the commander and deputy commander of the 10th team and were deeply trusted by the Emperor. Who would dare to spy on them? However, just in case, it was never wrong to be careful. No way. A heavenly tribulation appeared in the 1000 Demons Valley. A moment later, Qin Feiyang, who was sitting cross-legged in the cultivation room, suddenly stood up and looked at Lu Jiajin in surprise. Looking at your reaction, Madman is still in the 1000 Demons Valley and the heavenly tribulation might be caused by him. Lu Jiajin sighed. Originally, he thought that Madman might have already left the 1000 Demons Valley and the sudden appearance of the heavenly tribulation had nothing to do with him. But now it seemed that this luck had been erased. End of this chapter. Chapter 4489. Senior brother has indeed been in the Thousand Devil Valley. But I don't know if the heavenly tribulation has anything to do with him. Qin Feiyang frowned. Why would there be a heavenly tribulation all of a sudden? Could it be that senior brother relied on his own ability to comprehend an ultimate profundity? But thinking about it, it was impossible. Now, what ultimate profound inheritance didn't they have? With senior brother Craze's personality, it was impossible for him to comprehend it himself. Wait. Could it be an epiphany? Because if it was an epiphany, this kind of change would be uncontrollable. Lu Jiajin said in a deep voice, "Hurry up and think of a way, because Dong Qingyuan has already gathered us and is preparing to go to the Thousand Devil Valley. I'll send a message to senior brother now and tell him to leave the Thousand Devil Valley quickly." Qin Feiyang's face sank slightly and said, "Send a message?" Lu Jiajin was slightly stunned and speechless. There are rules in the Thousand Devil Valley that restrict communication. Even if Long Chen's God's domain can now control the rules, he still needs to enter the Thousand Devil Valley. Heard of it? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. That's it for now. Hurry up and think of a way. Although the Thousand Devil Valley is filled with evil power and can stop us from entering, it can't stop the origin power in the hands of the emperors. After Lu Jiajin finished speaking, he turned off the sound transmission god stone and walked out of the attic. He exchanged a glance with the inner demons and rushed towards the imperial palace like lightning. At the same time, Black Tortoise Realm. How could this be? Qin Feiyang clenched his hands and shouted, "White-eyed wolf, Long Chen, demon ancestor, Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, Dong Xingyang, Dong Qin, it's urgent, come to me quickly." Immediately, he walked out of the castle and stood in front of the castle gate, his face full of worry. Extremely urgent. What's the situation? Not only White-Eyed Wolf and the others, even the other people in seclusion were awakened by Qin Feiyang's voice. Whoosh. Almost at the same time, White-Eyed Wolf and the others landed in front of the castle, including Long Qin. What's so urgent? The White-Eyed Wolf was suspicious. The sudden appearance of the heavenly tribulation in the Myriad Demons Valley might have something to do with senior brother. Previously, Big Cousin sent me a message saying that Dong Qingyuan has already gathered everyone and is preparing to head to the Myriad Demons Valley. Let's hurry over and have a look. But for now, we don't have to all go out. White-Eyed Wolf, Long Chen, and I will go out. Mu Qing, can I trouble you to use your all-seeing eye to help me take a look at my senior martial brother's current situation, as well as the movements of Dong Qingyuan and the others? Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. All right. Mu Qing nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at the crowd, took a deep breath, and said, "Everyone, if the person who is going through the tribulation is really my senior brother, we will definitely face a fierce battle. Please be fully prepared and help me with all your strength. Don't worry. Now that we have mastered the will of the heavenly path, we are not afraid of a battle." The demon ancestor smiled. "Thank you." Qin Feiyang thanked him and waved his hand, leading the White-Eyed Wolf and Long Chen to the hall of the attic outside. The Sea Lion King, who was in seclusion, immediately opened his eyes suspiciously when he sensed the aura of the three people. "Change your appearance immediately and go to the Myriad Demons Valley," Qin Feiyang said. The Sea Lion King was a little surprised. Why are we going to the Myriad Demons Valley now? And all of them looked so serious. Wait, could it be that something happened to the lunatic in the Myriad Demons Valley? He quickly got up, took the phantom elixir that Qin Feiyang gave him, and threw it into his mouth. Qin Feiyang, the White-Eyed Wolf, and Long Chen also took a phantom elixir one after another. As soon as the four of them walked out of the courtyard, they saw Ji Xiaowu running over, panting. Seeing Qin Feiyang and the others coming out, he was stunned at first, then immediately said, "Qin Dage, I received a message that a heavenly tribulation suddenly appeared in the Myriad Demons Valley. I already know. Now, we are going to the Myriad Demons Valley," Qin Feiyang said. "You received the news so quickly?" Ji Xiaowu was stunned. He had just received the news, but how did Qin Feiyang and the others get the news before him? You can't help with this kind of thing, so don't join in the fun, stay in Greenwind City and cultivate. After Qin Feiyang said, He rushed out of the City Lord mansion like lightning and rushed toward the city gate. The white-eyed wolf, Long Chen, and the Sea Lion King followed closely. Their eyes were quite dignified. As soon as they left the city, 5 figures rose from the city and opened the enchantment in the sky. These 5 people were all wearing the Death God Army's uniform. Obviously, they were the members of the Death God Army lurking in Greenwind City. After the 5 of them left the enchantment, they directly opened a space-time tunnel and ran in without looking back. They actually left Greenwind City? Could it be that little madman's whereabouts in the Myriad Demons Valley have been exposed? The white-eyed wolf frowned. It's possible. And now, we can't directly land at the entrance of the Myriad Demons Valley. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he opened a space-time tunnel. Now, there must be members of the Death God Army around the Myriad Demons Valley. If they directly landed at the entrance of the Myriad Demons Valley, it may cause unnecessary trouble. The next moment, they appeared in the sky above a mountain range. This place was tens of thousands of miles away from the Myriad Demons Valley. Tens of thousands of miles, for the current them, was nothing. It was just a matter of a few steps. In the void in front, there were already many people gathered at this time. There were humans and beasts. Their cultivation was uneven. Obviously, they all heard the news and came to watch the show. Looking at the sky above the Myriad Demons Valley, it was indeed covered with blood clouds and thunder roaring. The power of the heavenly tribulation was rolling in all directions. This doesn't seem to be an ordinary heavenly tribulation. The white-eyed wolf was surprised. The blood clouds covered the entire sky, as if it had turned into a sea of blood. Streaks of blood-colored thunder force, like giant pythons, shuttled through the clouds. The terrifying aura it emitted was comparable to the time when Qin Feiyang comprehended the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death. Now, we can no longer maintain this face because once we make a move, our identity as Greenwind City's foreign elders will be exposed. Long Chen secretly said. No matter what, the identity of Greenwind City's foreign elders must be kept a secret. Otherwise, Ji Xiaowu will definitely be tortured. Since we have to make a move sooner or later, we might as well restore our true appearance, Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Long Chen and the white-eyed wolf nodded. Are we really going to make a move? The Sea Lion Beast King was a little frightened because in front of the crowd, there were many figures of the Death God Army. In the sky, there were still a large number of Death God Army members rushing over. In other words, if they made a move later, they would have to face the entire Death God Army. Look at how useless you are. At the very least, you've grasped 7 ultimate mysteries. The white-eyed wolf's face darkened. Facing the entire Death God Army, is there a difference between 6 and 7? The Sea Lion Beast King smiled bitterly. Let's go. Let's go to the forest below, activate the concealment technique, and take a closer look. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and led the 3 into the forest below. Seeing that there was no one around, he restored his true appearance and activated the concealment technique, hiding in the void, and flew towards the Myriad Demons Valley ahead. Qin Feiyang, the person undergoing the heavenly tribulation, is indeed a lunatic. Dong Qingyuan has also ordered the members of the Death God Army lurking in various cities to come to the Myriad Demons Valley. Mu Qing's voice rang in Qin Feiyang's mind. What about the Emperor? Qin Feiyang asked. The Emperor is also here. In addition, the Dragon God and Kuan Peng have also brought the Monster Kings and Beast Kings to support. This time, it's not a joke. In other words, we are about to face the entire Central Dynasty, Mu Qing said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang's face was solemn. Even the Monster Kings of the Kuan Peng Sea region and Beast Kings of the Sky Dragon Mountain range had come. Wait. The Monster Kings of the Kuan Peng Sea region shouldn't be able to come in a short time. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang frowned and asked. Because there were rules in the Kuan Peng Sea region, even if he gave the order immediately, it would take at least 10 days to half a month to arrive. No. Kuan Peng has already asked the 9 Monster Kings to lead all the Monster Kings to guard the coastline of the Kuan Peng Sea region. They will immediately come to the Myriad Demons Valley. Mu Qing transmitted her voice. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's eyes couldn't help but become gloomier. What's wrong? White-eyed Wolf looked at him suspiciously. Mu Qing told me that not only the Death God army, but also the monster kings of the Kuan-Pengsi region and beast kings of the Sky Dragon mountain range are on their way, Qin Feiyang thought. Hearing this, White-eyed Wolf's and Long Chen's faces instantly became gloomy. The battle that was about to break out was probably the most difficult battle they had ever fought since they entered the Divine Kingdom, especially the Sea Lion Monster King, who was trembling in fear. If it weren't for the White-eyed Wolf, he would have turned around and fled. Chapter 4491. The Emperor, Dong Qingyuan, and the Death God army were enough to make them suffer. Now, the Monster Kings and Beast Kings of the Kuan-Pengsi region and the Sky Dragon mountain range had all come to join in the fun. Wasn't this making things worse? Although many Monster Kings of the Kuan-Pengsi region had been killed by Qin Feiyang and the others, these losses were nothing for the entire Kuan-Pengsi region. Not to mention the Sky Dragon mountain range. It was in its peak state. Because Qin Feiyang and the others had not fought with the Sky Dragon mountain range since they came to the Central Dynasty. There were 10,000 Monster Kings of the Kuan-Pengsi region, and the Beast Kings of the Sky Dragon mountain range must be no less than that. In other words, the Monster Kings of the Kuan-Pengsi region and the Beast Kings of the Sky Dragon mountain range were equivalent to a Death God army. The road ahead was bleak. We can't ignore the life and death of Little Crazy. We have to bite the bullet. Little Qin Zi, if a battle really breaks out later, we will do our best to buy time for you to open the Eye of Heaven and copy the ultimate profound. The White-eyed Wolf said in a deep voice. It's useless. If the Emperor didn't come, we might still be able to fight our way out. But now that the Emperor has come in person and he has the origin energy in his hands, I'm afraid we only have hope if the mysterious young man comes. Qin Feiyang shook his head. He didn't care too much about the others, but the origin energy in the Emperor's hands. If, in the eyes of others, his 3,000 incarnations, the laws of life and death, and the dual wills of the heavenly Taos were a chasm that could never be crossed, an existence that could never be defeated. But in his eyes, the origin energy of the Divine Kingdom was a mountain that pressed down on his head. The White-eyed Wolf's face became gloomier after hearing this. Soon, they entered the crowd and quietly approached the Thousand Demons Valley. However, after a while, they stopped and looked at the void in front of them, frowning. There were figures standing in the void in front of them. These people stood in a row, surrounding the Thousand Demons Valley, and at the same time, blocking the people behind them. They were the members of the Death God army, staring at the Thousand Demons Valley with a murderous look. Crack. Boom. In the sky, the aura of the heavenly tribulation became more and more terrifying. The sound of thunder was deafening. The blood-red clouds rolled in the sky like a sea of blood. At first glance, it was as if a demon king had been born. Even though they were still some distance away from the myriad Demons Valley, Qin Feiyang and the others, as well as those who had come to join in the fun, could feel a deadly sense of crisis. Are we going to barge in or stay outside and wait for an opportunity? Long Chen asked. Even a madman wouldn't be able to survive such a terrifying heavenly tribulation. After all, when Qin Feiyang had comprehended the ultimate profundity of the laws of life and death, it had been with the help of the heaven-devouring beast that he had succeeded in transcending his tribulation. Stay outside and wait for an opportunity. Because now, they must think that we are also in the myriad Demons Valley. At that time, we can catch them off guard from behind. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. As long as they succeeded, they would be able to wipe out at least half of the Central Dynasty's forces. Long Chen was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Aren't you worried about the madman's safety? He is no longer the same as before." This heavenly tribulation. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the rolling tribulation clouds and lightning in the sky. "I believe that with senior brother's current strength, it won't be a problem for him to transcend his tribulation alone." Although he had succeeded in transcending his tribulation with the help of the heaven-devouring beast, he hadn't grasped the will of the heavens at that time. In other words, at that time, he wasn't even 1% of his current strength. Similarly, at that time, the madman had just merged with the root of all evil. He didn't have the true body of all evil, nor the sword of all evil. Moreover, The madman had accumulated a large amount of evil energy in the Black Tortoise realm. Once this evil energy erupted, it would unleash a destructive power. Therefore, as their strength grew, the heavenly tribulation didn't pose much of a threat to them. Of course, no threat didn't mean no danger. If you didn't go all out during the tribulation, you would still die under the heavenly tribulation. Swish. As the spacetime tunnels appeared, more and more members of the Death God army appeared. Not only had they surrounded the entrance, but they had also surrounded the entire myriad Devil's Valley from all directions. In other words, now, the entire myriad Demon's Valley was surrounded. No matter which direction they went, they couldn't escape. They could only fight their way out. Suddenly, another space-time tunnel opened. Several figures walked out one after another. The leader was the emperor of the Central Dynasty. Next were Princess Yuxian, Dong Qingyuan, Dong Hanzong, the Inner Demons, and Lu Jiajin. His Majesty, Princess Yuxian, actually came personally. And Dong Qingyuan. He is the commander of the Death God army. He has great power, but the most terrifying people are actually Dong Hanzong, Lu Yunfeng, and Lu Yuntian. Those three youngsters all possess strength that is not inferior to Qin Feiyang and the others. Especially Lu Yuntian, he is the same as Qin Feiyang. He has also comprehended the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death and grasped two wills of the heavens. He also has the Demon King true body that can compete with the 3,000 incarnations. I estimate that his strength is probably the strongest of the three. Everyone whispered in each other's ears. Their eyes were filled with respect. A middle-aged bearded man in black quickly walked in front of them and bowed respectfully. Greetings, His Majesty, Princess Yuxian, Legion Commander, Deputy Legion Commander, and the two commanders. Deputy Legion Commander? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. The Emperor, Princess Yuxian, Dong Qingyuan, the Inner Demons, and Lu Jiajin's identity naturally didn't need to be said. But who the hell was this Deputy Legion Commander? They had never heard of it. Could it be Dong Hanzong? What's the situation? Dong Hanzong asked. The bearded man said, Deputy Legion Commander, it is indeed Madman Mo who is undergoing the tribulation in the myriad Demons Valley. It really is him. When did he become the Deputy Legion Commander? As expected, it's different to have a good relationship with Dong Qingyuan. Qin Feiyang and the others mumbled. The Deputy Legion Commander's position in the Central Dynasty was even higher than the Inner Demons and Lu Jiajin. It was second only to the Emperor and Dong Qingyuan. For Dong Hanzong, it was considered to be outstanding and bring glory to his ancestors. After all, he was only a collateral family member. It was not easy for him to get to this point. But they all knew that Dong Hanzong's ambition was not just to be the Deputy Legion Commander. Perhaps one day in the future, even Dong Qingyuan, the Legion Commander, would become a stepping stone under his feet. Of course. With Dong Hanzong's strength, it was indeed not a problem for him to be the Deputy Legion Commander. After all, in terms of strength, 10 Dong Qingyuan, no, even 100 or 1,000 Dong Qingyuan would not be a match for Dong Hanzong. At the same time, hearing the bearded man's words, the Emperor and the others raised their heads and looked at the myriad Demons Valley. It is indeed Madman Mo's aura. Dong Qingyuan clenched his fists, and a ray of hatred suddenly shot out of his eyes. Dong Hanzong shook his head and said, but I didn't sense the aura of Qin Feiyang, the golden-winged wolf king, or the sea lion demon king. Why did you mention me by name? I'm just an insignificant person, won't you forget me? Long Chen, Dong Qin, which one of them isn't stronger than me? The sea lion demon king was about to cry when he heard Dong Hanzong's words. He thought that an insignificant person like him would soon be forgotten by the Emperor and the others, but he did not expect that they would deliberately mention him now. What did this mean? It meant that the other party had always remembered him in their hearts. Naive. If it weren't for you, would we have been able to escape from the Kuanping Sea region so easily? So, would they let a traitor like you go so easily? I'm afraid that in their hearts, their desire to kill you is even greater than ours. The white-eyed wolf snickered. You're still gloating? Isn't this all because of you? The sea lion demon king was very depressed. Why was he so stupid to mix with these people? But then again, if he had not surrendered to Qin Fei Yang and the others, he would have been deprived of his ultimate arcane and suppressed in the Black Tortoise realm like the Sea Python Demon King and the other Demon Kings. In the sky above, Dong Qingyuan looked at the Thousand Demons Valley, murderous intent flashed in his eyes, and said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, give the order." "No. Wait first." The Emperor waved his hand. "Wait for what?" Dong Qingyuan was taken aback. Frenzy was in the Thousand Demons Valley, and he was in the middle of his tribulation. He had no time to fight with them, so what were they waiting for? Didn't Dong Hanzong say that he didn't sense the aura of Qin Fei Yang and the others? I think they are either hiding in the Thousand Demons Valley now, or they have been hiding outside. If they are really hiding outside, think about it, when they find out that Frenzy is here, how will they react? The Emperor sneered secretly. Is there a need to think about it? They will definitely come to rescue Frenzy. Dong Qingyuan transmitted his voice. That's right. As long as they come to rescue Frenzy, we can take the opportunity to kill them all. Killing intent surged in the Emperor's eyes. Your Majesty is wise. Dong Qingyuan flattered him, but then his expression turned cold. He frowned and said, "What if they're hiding in the Myriad Demons Valley right now and playing tricks with us? Isn't that better? It saves us the trouble of looking for them. Looking at the formation of this person's tribulation, there must be 99. After we pass the 98, no, after the 98 tribulation, he will only have one tribulation left. The duration of one tribulation is too short, and there may be changes. How about this? After he passes the 50th tribulation, regardless of whether Qin Fei Yang and the others appear or not, directly kill Frenzy." The Emperor transmitted his voice. Yes. Dong Qingyuan responded respectfully, staring at the Thousand Demons Valley, and laughed sinisterly. Dong Hanzong was the same, and he sneered. "I didn't expect that even the heavens are helping us. Just you wait. Today will be your doomsday. If it wasn't for this sudden tribulation, they would probably never know that Frenzy was hiding in the Thousand Demons Valley. So, if this wasn't the heavens helping them, then what was?" End of chapter. Chapter 4492. Looking at their expressions, the inner demons and Lu Jiajin looked at each other and couldn't help but frown. The murderous intent of these two towards Qin Fei Yang and the others was truly intense. It seemed that they should find a chance to get rid of these two. He couldn't let the 9 great commanders stay in hell all alone, could he? Moreover, as long as these two died, they might become the army commander of the Death God army. In this way, they would be able to command the entire Death God army. Coupled with the cooperation of Qin Fei Yang and the rest, wouldn't they be able to defeat all the small teams one by one? Don't talk about it. This plan that they suddenly thought of was really not bad. However, how would Qin Fei Yang and the rest get through this difficult time? If they really had no choice, they could only reveal their identity and help Qin Fei Yang escape. However, by then, this plan would not be able to be carried out. Mysterious young man, the two inadvertently glanced at the crowd behind them. Qin Fei Yang and the rest must be hiding in the crowd at this moment. However, they wondered if that mysterious young man had received the news. After receiving the news, would he come to help? Catcher. Accompanied by a loud sound, the first heavenly tribulation that had been brewing for a long time finally descended. Like a blood dragon, it smashed the sky and crazily struck the Thousand Demons Valley. Hee, I really didn't expect that the evolution of the all-evil true body would actually lead to a heavenly tribulation. Suddenly, a burst of laughter sounded in the Thousand Demons Valley. It was the arrogant voice of Frenzy. Frenzy. This guy, we are almost worried to death and he can still laugh. The white-eyed wolf was indignant. Pay attention to the main point. The evolution of the all-evil true body. Long Chen stared at the Thousand Demons Valley, his eyes shining. That's right. The evolution of the all-evil true body is the main point. Qin Fei Yang also nodded. The all-evil true body could actually evolve again. This was really a bit unexpected. The white-eyed wolf was stunned for a moment and finally noticed this sentence. That's right. The evolution of the all-evil true body. What was going on this time? Although the madman's body still looked like a body of flesh and blood, it had already become the true body of all evil. In other words, it was a body of flesh and blood created by the origin of all evil using the power of evil. The all-evil sword was activated because of Frenzy's all-evil true body. Even though they were as close as brothers with the madman and knew the madman's situation like the back of their hands, they knew almost nothing about the all-evil true body. Because there had never been a precedent. And there was no comparison. Therefore, they didn't know what would happen if the next evolution of the all-evil true body. What kind of new divine ability would he obtain? As long as he doesn't turn into a monster with a bloody mouth and fangs, it's fine. The white-eyed wolf laughed. The Demon King true body evolved from the power of all evil made it easy for people to associate a madman with a devil. Swish. As the madman's voice fell, a blood-red light shot into the sky and landed above the myriad demons, entering everyone's line of sight. At this moment, Frenzy's appearance was no different from before. The only difference was that the evil aura on his body was more terrifying than before. From afar, it looked like a demon god was born. You actually called so many people to surround me. You guys really think highly of me. Frenzy didn't need to look to know that Myriad Demons Valley was now surrounded. Because the members of the Death God army surrounding Myriad Demons Valley didn't hide their auras at all. Dong Qingyuan snorted and silently looked at Frenzy's arrogance. In any case, he couldn't be arrogant for long. Heavenly tribulation? Frenzy ignored the Emperor and the others and looked up at the roaring heavenly tribulation in the sky. What can a mere heavenly tribulation do to me? As the corner of his mouth lifted, his blood hair danced in the wind, revealing a monstrous domineering aura. Clang! The next moment, he raised his hand and grabbed at the air, and the all-evil sword immediately appeared out of thin air. Its sharpness immediately swept in all directions and surged outwards like a tide. Everywhere it went, the void shattered crazily. The mountains and rivers of Myriad Demons Valley were also collapsing. It was like a scene of doomsday. What is this? For many creatures, it was the first time they saw the all-evil true body. Feeling the sharpness of the all-evil true body and the sense of danger coming from it, they all revealed a look of horror. Seal the Myriad Demons Valley, the Emperor said. Yes. Dong Qingyuan nodded and roared, seal the Myriad Demons Valley for me. The 10 small teams of the Death God army had basically all arrived. There were a total of about 88,000 people. Because there were only about 1,000 Will of Heaven powerhouses left in the 10th team. Later, Lu Jiajin and the Inner Demons recruited another 1,000 people. Now there were about 3,000 people. And the first team only had 5,000 people. However, these 5,000 people had mastered all the ultimate profoundness except for the laws of life and death and the laws of light and darkness. They were the elites of the elites. With Dong Qingyuan's order, a terrifying divine aura suddenly erupted around Myriad Demons Valley. Immediately after, waves of law power emerged. These law power contained the will of heaven that could intimidate all directions. All the laws gathered together and condensed into a barrier around Myriad Demons Valley. Not only did it seal all the exits of Myriad Demons Valley, it also blocked the aura of the heavenly tribulation and the all-evil sword. Otherwise, with the power of the heavenly tribulation and the all-evil sword, they could flatten a radius of hundreds of millions of miles in minutes. At that time, who knew how many creatures would be affected? In the blink of an eye, the madman waved his hand and the all-evil sword erupted with a wave of sword chi. Like a blood-colored wave, it crazily surged into the sky and collided with the heavenly tribulation. A scene that made everyone turn pale with fright appeared. Such a terrifying heavenly tribulation was actually unable to block the sword chi of the all-evil sword and was crushed into pieces. Damn! Even Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and Long Chen were dumbfounded. This heavenly tribulation was not weak. However, the all-evil sword was easily crushed. Not only that, the madman had yet to inject the power of all evil into the all-evil sword. Because the more power of all evil was injected into the all-evil sword, the stronger its lethality. In other words, right now, the all-evil sword was only relying on its own power. Its own power could contend against the heavenly tribulation. As expected, everything was no longer the same as before. Back then, Qin Feiyang hadn't grasped the will of the heavenly Tao, so he needed to replicate thousands upon thousands of ultimate profundities in order to successfully block one heavenly tribulation after another. And now, the madman was invincible just by relying on the sword of all evil. It is indeed strong. Seeing this scene, even Princess Moonfairy was unable to remain calm. This method was truly unheard of. The only ones that could compete with the all-evil sword were probably Lu Yunqian's Demon King True Body and Dong Hanzong's Universe Domain. Of course, and also her Divine Kingdom's origin energy. More and more people came after hearing the news. But without exception, looking at the all-evil sword in the madman's hand, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. In the sky above the Thousand Demons Valley, other than the deafening thunder, it was dead silent. Boom! The second heavenly tribulation also fell. The madman laughed and once again slashed back. The sword Qi roared in the sky, emitting an extremely terrifying fiendish aura. The second heavenly tribulation was shattered just like that. What? How is this possible? A cry of surprise sounded. The Emperor and the others raised their heads and saw that in the sky, space-time channels opened one after another, and groups of people kept pouring out. The aura they exuded was like a vast ocean, unfathomable, and the ones in the lead were the Dragon God and Kuan Peng. There was no suspense. They were the Beast Kings of the Kuan Peng Sea region and Sky Dragon Mountain Range, the Beast Kings, close to 20,000. Vast and mighty, the aura was shocking, and the ones who exclaimed were the Dragon God and Kuan Peng. Could it be that their eyes were playing tricks on them? Such a terrifying heavenly tribulation was actually shattered by this person's sword. Crack! The third heavenly tribulation also fell. Just like before, the madman directly shattered it with a sword. The terrifying heavenly tribulation was like a withered tree under his sword, unable to withstand a single blow. What kind of method is this? His too ridiculously strong. The various monster kings and beast kings were also shocked. Facing this heavenly tribulation, as soon as they descended here, they immediately felt a fatal threat, but this madman Mo actually shattered it so effortlessly. Seeing is believing, hearing is false. This saying was not false at all. In the past, when they heard the name of the madman, they didn't think that it was a big deal. The rumors outside must have been exaggerated. Only now that they saw it with their own eyes did they know how terrifying this person was. Your Majesty, why don't you kill him? Although I don't know why he's going through the heavenly tribulation, but with such a shocking heavenly tribulation, once he succeeds, there will definitely be an earth-shattering chain. This person must be killed in the cradle. Kuan Peng and the Dragon God came back to their senses and landed in front of the Emperor, saying with a solemn expression. Not to mention a group of monster kings and beast kings, even the two of them who had a pinnacle dominator divine weapon could feel the danger brought by the heavenly tribulation. But the madman under the heavenly tribulation was relaxed and at ease. The difference in strength was instantly reflected. No rush. The heavenly tribulation will become more and more terrifying. Moreover, Qin Feiyang and the others have not appeared yet. The Emperor secretly told the two of his plan. So that's how it is. The evolution of the all-evil true body. His all-evil sword is already so strong, if it evolves again, what kind of ability will it have? To be honest, they were looking forward to it. However, an enemy was an enemy after all. Disperse immediately and assist the Death God army to surround the Thousand Demons Valley. The two of them ordered. Yes. Immediately. The more than 9,000 monster kings of the Kuan Peng Sea region left murderously under the lead of the 9 monster emperors. The beast kings of the Sky Dragon Mountain Range also rushed in all directions under the lead of the monster emperors. Did you notice that the Sky Dragon Mountain Range also has 10 monster emperors? As for the beast kings, there are about 10,000 of them. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice as he glanced at the monster emperors and beast kings, his eyes flashing. They can't be underestimated, Long Chen secretly said. The Emperor, Princess Yuxian, Dong Qingyuan, Dong Hanzong, Kuan Peng, Dragon God, the Death God army, monster kings, beast kings. Moreover, the Emperor had a legendary dominator divine weapon in his hand, the Emperor's sword. Kuan Peng and Dragon God also had pinnacle dominator divine weapons. As for Princess Yuxian, as the beloved daughter of the emperor and the granddaughter of the dominator of the divine kingdom, she must have a lot of divine items in her hands. Just thinking about it made the situation worrisome. End of this chapter. Chapter 4493. With the arrival of the Beast King of the Sky Dragon Mountain Range and the Monster King of the Kunpeng Sea region, almost all the experts of the Central Dynasty, except for the top 10 direct descendants, had arrived. At the same time, the experts of the top 10 direct descendants were also arranging the affairs of the clan and were about to rush over. Once they arrived, all the experts of the Central Dynasty's will of Heavenly Tao would be present. In other words, once the battle began, the battle between Qin Feiyang and the Central Dynasty would erupt. Boom. The fifth, the sixth, one after another, the heavenly tribulation continued to fall. Without using any other means, the madman used the all-evil sword to successfully pass the 30th tribulation. It was truly heaven-defying. However, when it came to the 31st tribulation, the lethality of the all-evil sword began to weaken. When the 35th tribulation descended, the all-evil sword was no longer able to block the power of the tribulation. The blood wave-like sword Qi was instantly annihilated. Haha, it seems that we don't even need to make a move, he will die under the tribulation. Seeing this scene, Dong Hanzong couldn't help but laugh. This was only the 35th tribulation and the all-evil sword couldn't withstand it. How could he succeed? Because there were still 64 tribulation behind. And the last tribulation was the sum of the previous 98 tribulation. To be honest, when Qin Feiyang was crossing the tribulation, if it wasn't for the help of the small beast, it was really unknown whether he could successfully pass the last tribulation. That's right. I'm afraid he can't even hold on to the 50th tribulation. Dong Qingyuan also nodded. If this continued, if Qin Feiyang and the others didn't make a move, this person would undoubtedly die. Pay attention. Qin Feiyang and the others may make a move at any time. As long as they appear, don't talk nonsense and directly attack. The emperor's voice suddenly sounded in the minds of Dong Qingyuan, Dong Hanzong, Kunpeng, Dragon God, Princess Yuxian, and the inner demons. Yes. The group of people secretly responded. Little cousin, this time, how are you going to break the situation? Lu Jiajin glanced at the crowd and muttered secretly. It could be said that this time, the situation was even more dangerous than the last time in Hanzong City. Last time, Dong Qingyuan, Princess Yuxian, the Dragon God, Kunpeng, and the Death God army's 1st to 7th teams were all absent. Moreover, at that time, Dong Hanzong had also been severely injured. His physical body had been destroyed, and only his divine soul was left. But it was different this time. Everyone was in peak condition. All the small teams had also arrived. Even the Beast Kings and Demon Kings of the Kunpeng Sea region and the Sky Dragon Mountain Range had come. Wang. Suddenly, more space-time passages opened. More than 3,000 people surged out. They were the will of the heavens powerhouses of the 10 great direct descendant clans. Now, all the experts of the Central Dynasty's will of Heavenly Tao were present. In total, there should be around 120,000. With such a lineup, they could kill any god or devil that stood in their way. One could imagine how dangerous the situation was for Qin Feiyang and the others. We definitely won't be able to fight them head-on. We can only kill them when they least expect it. That's why we have to endure it for now. We must not expose our whereabouts. Long Chen secretly warned. However, just as he finished speaking, he noticed the expressions of Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. He couldn't help but be stunned. He thought that the two of them would be impulsive when they saw that the madman was defeated by the heavenly tribulation. But now, the two of them looked extremely calm and didn't have the slightest intention to make a move. Stop joking. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf would make a move? Definitely not. Because now, the all-evil sword was just in its initial state. In other words, the madman hadn't injected the power of all evil into it yet. Once the power of all evil was injected, the lethality of the all-evil sword would increase exponentially. Dealing with a mere heavenly tribulation would be a piece of cake. A mere heavenly tribulation? If these words were heard by the people around, their jaws would probably drop. Because in their eyes, no, even in the eyes of the members of the Death God army, this heavenly tribulation could only be described as terrifying. It's almost over. Don't force yourself. Hurry up and die. Don't expect Qin Fei Yang and the others to come and save you. All the will of heaven powerhouses in our central dynasty are here now. Even if they are hiding here, they won't dare to come out and help you. Looking at the madman who was bitterly holding on, Dong Hanzong couldn't help but sneer. The inner demons and Lu Jiajin glanced at Dong Hanzong. He was really a qualified clown. Above the Thousand Demons Valley, the madman had already welcomed the 38th heavenly tribulation. At this moment, his body was covered in wounds and blood was pouring out like a waterfall. The all-evil sword was also covered in cracks and was on the verge of shattering. Suddenly, he looked up at Dong Hanzong and grinned. You want me to die so badly? Dong Hanzong raised his eyebrows. You can still smile? Pretending to be calm, why don't we make a bet? The madman laughed. Looking at the madman's current appearance, Dong Hanzong's brows tightened. Why does he look so fearless? Let's bet on whether I can safely pass the heavenly tribulation. If I pass it safely, you'll kneel in front of me and be my obedient grandson. If I fail, I'll call you grandpa before I die. Do you dare? The madman looked at him provocatively. Childish. Dong Hanzong sneered. Was there a need to bet on a person who was going to die? You don't dare. You don't even have the guts. It seems that you're not that great. Look at yourself. There are so many eyes watching. Aren't you afraid that they'll laugh at you in the future? You don't even dare to accept the challenge of a person who's going to die. The madman continued to mock, making Dong Hanzong's face turn green and red. He looked at the members of the Death God army, the Beast Kings, and the Fey Kings. These people didn't have any reaction and their eyes were fixed on the madman. However, the gazes of the living beings behind him, who had come to join in the fun, became a little unfathomable. Lu Jiajin's eyes flashed. He suddenly looked at Shin Mo and smiled faintly. Brother, did you see that? This is a lesson. Don't talk nonsense. Otherwise, you might just be asking for humiliation. Who are you talking about? Dong Hanzong immediately turned around and stared at Lu Jiajin. What? You want to eat people? The inner demon stepped in front of Lu Jiajin and looked at Dong Hanzong with a cold light in his eyes. Dong Hanzong's face was dark. If you don't have the guts to fight, then you'd better behave. Don't act like an idiot. Others might be afraid of you, but we're not afraid at all. The inner demon sneered and looked at Lu Jiajin. He nodded seriously and said, Brother, remember. Don't worry. I won't be like some idiot and ask for humiliation. Dong Hanzong clenched his fists and his knuckles cracked. If you're not convinced, then you can bet with him. Why are you glaring at us? We didn't provoke you. You're the one who provoked that madman. Anyway, don't talk if you don't have the guts. You're embarrassing yourself. The inner demon shook his head and then looked at Princess Moonfairy with a smile. Little girl, what do you think? Little girl? Princess Moonfairy's mouth twitched. In the entire Central Dynasty, only this guy dared to be so impudent in front of her. However, this Dong Hanzong was indeed stupid. He knew that the madman wasn't a good person, but he still went to provoke him. Sigh. His talent was indeed good, but his brain wasn't that good. He only had a few tricks up his sleeves. In terms of wisdom, this guy was nowhere near it. Seeing the inner demons calling Princess Moonfairy so intimately and the princess not showing any disgust or rejection, Dong Hanzong's heart was filled with jealousy. Looking at the princess's eyes, which contained a hint of disdain, he was instantly enraged. Let's bet. He stared at the madman who was trying his best to resist the tribulation and roared. Even if you can withstand the first 50 tribulation, the emperor will order you to be killed. So you can't pass the tribulation. In other words, he was already confident in winning this bet. He definitely couldn't lose. The madman used all his strength and finally defeated the 39th tribulation. The 10,000 evil sword finally reached its limit and broke into pieces. The madman was in an extremely sorry state. However, as if he didn't know any of this, He turned his head to look at Dong Hanzong and laughed. It seems that I have underestimated you. Dong Hanzong smiled coldly. However, grandson, you are destined to lose to me. What's a mere tribulation? The madman looked at the sky domineeringly. A mere tribulation? He has already fallen to this point, but he is still so arrogant. He is really hopeless. The surrounding creatures were all enraged by the madman's arrogance. In their eyes, the madman was simply asking for a beating. What's going on? He has clearly reached his limit, but how can he still be so arrogant? And Qin Fei Yang and the golden-winged wolf king still haven't appeared. Do they believe in the madman's ability, or are they not in the 10,000 Demons Valley at all and don't know about the madman's tribulation? The emperor cursed silently. He couldn't help but turn his head and sweep his gaze at the crowd behind him. Right now, the void behind them could only be described as a sea of people. Because there were too many. Humans, beasts, and even some sea beasts that came from afar. Not only the void behind them, but the mountains and rivers in all directions of the 10,000 Demons Valley were also filled with people. With so many people, and if Qin Fei Yang and the others deliberately hid their identities and changed their appearances, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. No. They are alone. It should be impossible for them to separate. That's right. This Qin Fei Yang and the golden-winged wolf king must also be in the 10,000 Demons Valley. The emperor once again looked at the 10,000 Demons Valley. In fact, his analysis was very reasonable. Logically speaking, no matter who it was, as long as they were enemies of the central dynasty, they would definitely choose to stay together. Because if they stayed together, they could take care of each other and wouldn't be alone in the face of the enemy. However, the emperor didn't know that Qin Fei Yang and the others had never played by the rules. If you inferred according to common sense, you would suffer a great loss in the end. Boom. Crack. The 40th heavenly tribulation descended. This power was enough to instantly kill any powerhouse with heavenly will in the world. Go to hell. Dong Hanzong roared in his heart. You are already exhausted, and the 10,000 Demons sword is broken. What are you still holding on for? It's meaningless. End of chapter. Chapter 4494. However, seeing that the madman was about to die under the heavenly tribulation, Dong Hanzong was already prepared to celebrate. But at this moment, the power of all evil appeared and the broken all-evil sword quickly reformed. How could this be? The joy in Dong Hanzong's eyes instantly disappeared and was replaced by disbelief. Heh. The madman bared his teeth. The power of all evil continued to pour into the all-evil sword. The aura of the all-evil sword instantly soared to a new level. If before, the lethality of the all-evil sword was equivalent to a low-level dominator weapon, now it was equivalent to a mid-level dominator weapon. Of course. The power of the all-evil sword was definitely not something a low-level or mid-level dominator weapon could compare to. It was just a metaphor. Moreover, with the appearance of the power of all evil, the injuries on the madman's body were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. He was the true body of all evil. Therefore, the power of all evil could not only help him kill his enemies, but it could also help him recover from his injuries. In layman's terms, the power of all evil was equivalent to a great tonic for him. Clang. With the increase in lethality, the madman swung his sword at the heavenly tribulation. Sword chi swept out in all directions and with a loud bang, the heavenly tribulation shattered. The injuries on his body were also completely healed. The previous weakness and wretchedness were all gone and he seemed to be full of energy. How could this be? Dong Hanzong's eyes trembled. He had clearly reached his limit before, so why did he recover to his peak state so quickly? Not only did he recover to his peak state, even the power of the all-evil sword had increased by so much. It was completely beyond common sense. The source of all evil, the true body of all evil, the power of all evil. In the past, I have only read about the source of all evil in ancient books, but I didn't expect it to be true. And it is even more terrifying than what was recorded in the ancient books. Princess Moon Fairy muttered. The source of all evil was the root of all evil. This was an extremely terrifying power. Because in this world, the power of evil was everywhere. It was also because of the terror of the source of all evil that no one had been able to control this power since ancient times. Because they couldn't withstand the corrosion of the evil aura. The evil aura would corrode a person's soul and intelligence, turning them into an evil puppet. It was equivalent to a puppet that had lost its soul and consciousness. But now, someone had actually merged with the source of all evil and successfully controlled this power. Moreover, he had even comprehended such a terrifying killing technique. The power of the all-evil sword was so strong that it made people tremble. No. The all-evil sword is not a killing technique that he comprehended. The emperor shook his head. Ah! Princess Yuxian looked at him in shock. Fusing with the origin of all evil is actually only the first step. The second step is to create the true body of all evil. However, this requires a certain amount of opportunity and luck. Obviously, Madman Mo has this opportunity and luck. He successfully created the all-evil true body, and the all-evil sword appeared along with the all-evil true body. To put it simply, the all-evil sword is the all-evil true body's innate ability. The emperor explained. Princess Yuxian asked, "Are you saying that as long as I can create the all-evil true body, I can directly create the all-evil sword and control it?" That's right. However, the emperor nodded. Then, a look of disbelief crept onto his face. But what? Princess Moon Fairy was suspicious. Something that could make her father feel disbelief was definitely not simple. Although I know the situation of the origin of all evil better than you, I never thought that the power of all evil could increase the power of the all-evil sword. According to my observation, it should be able to increase the power endlessly, the emperor said in a deep voice. Increase the power endlessly. Princess Yuxian's beautiful eyes widened. Didn't this mean that the more evil energy there was, the more lethality of the all-evil sword would increase? That's right. As long as there's evil energy in the world, the power of the all-evil sword will continue to increase. Moreover, with the all-evil true body, he can store the evil energy in the outside world in his body. When it's time to kill the enemy, he can instantly unleash it. By doing this, he can not only increase his combat power, but he can also catch the enemy off guard. The emperor said with a serious expression. If it wasn't for the fact that he had the power of origin in his hands, even he would have to retreat when facing madmen. Although he also had a legendary sovereign weapon, it was still lacking compared to the all-evil sword. Your Majesty. Suddenly, a skinny middle-aged man rushed to the emperor's side. He was wearing the uniform of the Death God Army and bowed. Again. The emperor looked at him suspiciously. As a member of the Death God Army, this person naturally had the will of the heavens. The emperor had some impression of this person, but he couldn't recall who it was. Dong Han, what are you doing? The inner demons raised his eyebrows and looked at the skinny middle-aged man unhappily. Dong Han? Princess Yuxian paused for a moment. She looked at Dong Han for a moment and said, "You seem to be from the second family. I didn't expect your Majesty to remember this lowly one." Dong Han said with a flattered look on his face. "I have some impression of you." Princess Yuxian smiled faintly. "Dong Han, why did you suddenly run over here? What do you want?" The inner demon's expression became more and more unsatisfied. "Commander, please calm down." Dong Han's expression was slightly flustered. He had just joined the 10th team of the Death God Army. The inner demons, Lu Jiajin, was his immediate superior. Seeing his superior get angry, especially when it was the inner demons, how could he not be flustered? If you have something to say it quickly. Don't dawdle. The inner demon's expression was impatient. This person suddenly ran over. What did he want to say? Yes. Dong Han nodded respectfully. He looked at the inner demons and said, "Commander, you must know that I brought my people to the 4 great continents a few years ago." "Of course I know. It's hard not to know such a big thing. You naively went to the 4 great continents to take advantage of the situation. But in the end, you were hunted down by Qin Feiyang and the others. You were almost wiped out." The inner demons mocked. Hearing the inner demon's words, Dong Han was a little embarrassed. He sighed and said, "That's true. But at the 4 great continents, we saw something unbelievable." "What is it?" The inner demons was stunned and looked at him curiously. It's called lunatic. At that time, Qin Fei Yang, Madman Mo, and the Golden-Winged Wolf King went to find trouble with Boss Ji and the others. I don't know if they wanted to kill them or subdue them. After all, the old antiques of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan are very powerful. If they can be subdued, they will become a terrifying force that can't be ignored by Qin Fei Yang and the others. At that time, Madman Mo and Ji Larosha had a bloody battle. And I saw that battle with my own eyes. Dong Han said. A bloody battle? The Emperor, Dong Qingyuan, Dong Hanzong, and Princess Yuxian were slightly stunned. They quickly asked, what was the result? Lunatic lost miserably. Dong Han said. As expected. Lu Jiajin smiled faintly. After all, these old men had mastered at least 7 ultimate profound meanings and 3,000 incarnations. No matter how strong the lunatic was or how terrifying the all-evil sword was, it was impossible for him to defeat them. However, although the madman was defeated, the methods and strength he displayed at that time can only be described as pitilessly terrifying. Dong Han's eyes trembled. Every time he thought of the battle between the lunatic and Boss Ji, he couldn't help but feel fear. What do you mean? Princess Yuxian frowned. An expert with the will of the heavens was scared to this extent. Of course, she didn't doubt Dong Han's courage. After all, as an expert with the will of the heavens, how could he not have the courage? The only reason was that the lunatic's means had exceeded Dong Han's tolerance. In other words, it had left a shadow in Dong Han's heart. At that time, he also used his trump card, the all-evil sword. The situation at the beginning was the same as now. Although it was very powerful, it wasn't to the point of being heaven-defying. But, as Ji Larosha activated 3,000 incarnations, the lunatic's all-evil sword also became crazily stronger. Speaking up to here, Dong Han swallowed his saliva and said in horror, "You will never know how many ultimate profound meanings he shattered with his last sword." How many? Dong Han frowned. He desperately wanted to know the answer to this question. 10,000. Dong Han raised a finger. What? 10,000 ultimate profound meanings? Dong Han's body and mind trembled, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. The Emperor, Dong Qingyuan, and Princess Yuxian were also shocked to the extreme. One had to know. Ji Larosha was an expert with the will of the heavens, and each of his ultimate profound meanings contained the will of the heavens. How terrifying was it to shatter 10,000 ultimate profound meanings with one sword? If it wasn't for Dong Han saying it, and if they didn't know that Dong Han wouldn't dare to lie in front of them, they wouldn't dare to believe it. Dong Qingyuan said in a deep voice, "Why didn't you tell us such an important thing before? I thought you knew. Because you and the deputy army commander have fought with them in the 4 great continents. But before I saw your reaction, you didn't seem to know about this, so I immediately came to tell you," Dong Han said. Dong Qingyuan and Dong Han looked at each other. They really didn't know about this. Although the mad scientist had opened the all-evil sword when they were in the 4 great continents, he didn't inject the power of all evil into it. So, they thought that the all-evil sword they saw at that time was the strongest state of the all-evil sword. But they didn't expect. The true strongest state of the all-evil sword was an endless increase in power. "Your Majesty, please give the order to kill him immediately. If we don't kill this person, there will be endless trouble in the future." Dong Qingyuan immediately looked at the Emperor and shouted. The Emperor looked at the mad scientist, who was undergoing the tribulation, with a hint of killing intent in his eyes. Although the tribulation was getting stronger and stronger, it couldn't cause any damage to the mad scientist at all. Because the all-evil sword in his hand was emitting a terrifying aura. What a busybody. The inner demons and Lu Jiajin glanced at Dong Han with a hint of killing intent in their eyes. It was better to get rid of this busybody as soon as possible.